College like to begin?
There are more seats up here.
A couple seats over here for anybody.
Yeah. All right.
Well, greetings and welcome to another Bailey Oratorical. The story of this contest is very much a story about a family who over 100 years has supported Juniata students and public speaking. Their gifts have made a real difference at Juniata. And I hope as you hear this story in a minute, you'll think yourself and myself over time how also we can make a difference at Juniata or some other institution as they have. Now the story. The original Bailey Award was established in 1915 by the Honorable Thomas F. Bailey, who served as President Judge in Huntington County from 1916 until 1936. The contest and the award were established in honor of the judge's father, John M. Bailey, who also served as President Judge of Huntington County from 1896 to 1913. Beginning in 1916, the contest was a very prestigious event, with a prize of $50 being awarded to the winner. Today, through additional endowment gifts by Judge Bailey's son-in-law, the late Colonel Sedgley Thornberry, the first prize is now $1,000. In addition, the name of the winner will be permanently inscribed on the antique loving cup presented by Colonel Thornberry's son, Thomas Bailey Thornberry. This is the cup. The second place prize is $500, and the third place prize is $300. They're also made possible by Colonel Thornberry. Tonight, contestants will address the question, does a liberal education mean liberal politics? And now I'd like to turn the program over to Donna Weimer, the Thornberry Professor of Communications, who will introduce our judges for this evening's contest. Donna.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. Professor Fala, Cockett, Dello, Viscoli, Berminski, yes, that would be the communication program, are all so pleased that you have come this evening to share our interest and enjoyment in public speaking. Before I introduce the judges for this evening, I would like to salute the 21 students who participated in the preliminary round a week and a half ago, and the judges who made that event an academic challenge. David Schoenthal, a 98 grad and Bailey finalist, Matt Peters, a 2000 grad and second place Bailey winner, and Dawn Hayes, a 95 grad, all came and shared their Saturday with us, and we really made them work very hard. So if you could please give them a big hand up. I would be remiss if I didn't publicly thank SPEAK, the Communication Club, and Lambda Pi Eta, our National Communication Honor Society, for their sponsorship as well. To that end, I also want to thank Pat Musselman for hours of invisible labor that always make this event in Juniata College look so good. We have made one of the oldest academic events at Juniata high-tech, and I want to thank our TLT folk back of the room, the Solutions Center and WKVR for helping to stream live audio via the Juniata webpage. It's also on the radio right now, WKVR. And tomorrow it will be all Bailey, all the time, on channel 98, 24/7. So, tonight we have three distinguished judges faced with the difficult challenge of choosing three winners. In each of their professions, speaking effectively is crucial to their success. The competition is rigorous, and everyone in the communication program is eternally grateful that we will not have to make this decision. Jeff Belomo, if you wouldn't mind standing, he's a JC alum, class of 2000. He had a POE in political communication, was the 2000 winner of the Bailey. He graduated from Widener University School of Law with distinction and passed the bar, 2003. He's currently clerking for the Honorable David Ashworth in Lancaster Court of Common Pleas and will work for the law firm of Anstein and Sparler in York in May. So please help me welcome Sarah Worley, JC alum, class of 2000 with a POE in Communication and Philosophy. She's also a winner of the Bailey and finalist in '99. Earned a master's in public administration from the University of Colorado, so she came a long way to be with us tonight, and I'm really grateful. She's currently working in member services and as an ad rep for the South Metro Denver Chamber of Commerce. Soon, maybe we're trying to get her back east of the Mississippi. Last but not least, Dr. Brad Miller, JC alum, class of '94. And my advisee. He did a few other things since then, received his medical degree from the Philadelphia School of Osteopathic Medicine in '98, and he's currently a member of the Family Health Association of Lewistown, Pennsylvania. We're very, very glad to have him here with us today. These judges come with a list of awards and accomplishments. I just want you to know how inadequate and incomplete my introduction of them was. Now, on to what you've all been waiting for. Our finalists are and will be speaking in the following order. Michelle Kalka will begin the round. She's a senior with a POE in Digital Media Studies. John Damon, senior with POE in Accounting and Politics, will go second. Erin Bainey is a junior with a POE in Communication and Life Sciences. She will be third. Erin Brunner, senior with a POE in Communication Media Studies and a secondary emphasis in philosophy. Christine Robbins, a senior with a POE in Communications Marketing. Paul Branisak, a senior with a Communication Studies and History POE. And finally, last but not least, Gretchen Stull, a senior with a POE in English Communication and Writing. Now, I know that they are, yes, please give them a big Now, we always have some contention afterwards. You have your favorite, they should win. I understand all of that, but as a result, lots of folk have said, well, just what criteria are those judges using anyway? Well, essentially, it's about arguing well and respecting your audience. It's that fundamental. You should be able to follow their arguments, hear their introductions, see that they have a coherent argument throughout the body of their speech, and you should be very clear when they're finished, all right? It's hard work. It is more than you would imagine trying to keep it all together. So, and if I say any more, they're going to panic on me. So please support them. I'm going to call their name and then they will come up. We're going to give the judges some time to make some notes. So it may seem like a lag in between. After all of them have spoken, the judges will leave for, 20 minutes, I'm hoping, and they will pull together their list of winners. So we hope you will all stay and wait for the final results. So let us begin. Thank you. Michelle Kalka.
Michelle Kalka. When I use a word, Humpty Dumpty said, it means just what I choose it to mean, neither more nor less. The question is, said Alice, whether you can make words mean so many different things. The question is, said Humpty Dumpty, which is to be master. Well, Alice, some words do have multiple meanings, and some meanings do matter more. For example, take the word liberal. The root word of liberal is derived from Latin, meaning free. To liberate means to deliver into independence. Even Juniata's own motto translates, truth sets free. Under this definition of the word, yes, liberal education should mean a liberal politic, where politics would be approached with an open mind, a tolerance for others, and freedom of expression in the search for truth. But things are rarely as true as their original definitions. Like Alice, we are faced with the confusion of multiple meanings, and we're not even in Wonderland. The term liberal politics is often equated with one half of the bipartisan government system and a few smaller third parties. Therefore, it would be a faulty generalization to say that liberal education implies liberal politics. We must understand the original idea of liberal, the idea that by seeking knowledge we have choices, and through these choices we have freedom. What I propose is a broader understanding to liberal education based on this meaning. The true mark of a liberal education is the ability to have free thoughts, let them give shape to your life, and make a difference regardless of political stance. Liberal education is not about forcing political ideologies on students. Instead, it is about teaching students to seek knowledge, think critically about the information we receive, and process that information in such a way that we can form our own opinions. Liberal education gives us the background necessary to think freely. William Butler Yeats said that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. We must be free thinkers of the sort that Socrates advocated. He sought to awaken in the individual the pursuit of genuine self-knowledge and reason by questioning them about the very language they were using. We all need a little Socratic method in our lives, some of us more than others, but it is our responsibility to understand the views of others to the best of our ability, as difficult as that sometimes is, and to make our decisions with knowledge and rationality. According to C.S. Lewis in 1977, there have always been twin purposes to liberal education. The first is to discover the way the world really is. The second is to become fully human by conforming to that reality. Liberal education is essentially the engagement of each individual with knowledge in the search for what it means to be human. This is something that each individual must seek for themselves. Having free thought is the heart of liberal education, the mark of being fully human. After we have formulated our opinions, we must utilize them to give shape to our lives. Following the ideas of C.S. Lewis, liberal education is part of the process of becoming human, a reinterpretation and acknowledgement of what already exists. In our culture, we must come to understand and acknowledge our democracy by denying apathy. In the words of Dante, the hottest fires of hell are reserved for those who in times of great moral crisis maintain their neutrality. While I can't speak for Dante, I'm not personally condemning you to hell if you didn't vote. The point is that we must stay active and engaged in our government, no matter what political ideology we may hold. Most Americans simply don't pay enough attention to today's politics and issues. More than any other time in history, we have a wealth of information at our fingertips and easy access to political news and current events. And yet, according to the Federal Election Commission, only 25% of the eligible voting population actually submits their ballots. So how do we address this problem of apathy? One way is by taking our liberal education seriously. Liberal education gives us the knowledge and critical skills to form political opinions. It also gives us the ability to effectively articulate them. My political beliefs have given shape to my life through activism. Over my college years, I have worked for polar opposite candidates of both the Green Party and the Libertarian Party at the same time, which was more bizarre than you can possibly imagine. But with a liberal arts background, I had the knowledge and skills to be a liaison between the two very different candidates and help formulate ways for the parties to work together to achieve common goals. The most challenging part of this job was to listen with an open mind and an open heart. These two candidates helped to shape my opinions, and these opinions gave further shape to my life. By participating in debate and discussion with others, our ideas might change as mine did. In the words of Cardinal Newman, To live is to change, and to be mature is to have changed often. Forming our own opinions and letting them give shape to our lives is the mark of a liberal education, the mark of becoming fully human. Our liberal education also gives us the power to enact change. Nothing is more powerful than a strong opinion. However, we must be careful that we do not force our opinions on others, as some professors are being accused of. Concern that professors are targeting students of different political ideologies, as cited in the Center Daily Times, is likely misinterpreted. Professors in truly liberal education are not out to brainwash students, but much like Socrates, to challenge them to think about their own beliefs and be able to support them. It is completely unacceptable for a student to be penalized for expressing their political opinions within an appropriate situation. The opportunity to debate and share ideas in an open environment is a defining characteristic of a liberal education and a democracy. If laws to protect students of a particular political ideology are even being considered, it can only mean that we have forgotten what a liberal education really means. Above all, we must question ourselves and seek answers to what we do not understand. This is the environment our professors are trying to provide, regardless of their political stance and regardless of ours. We all must have the courage to take a stand and do what is in our power to make a difference. Whether by engaging in academic discussion, volunteering our time to causes we believe in, or simply using our right to vote, we can change our world for the better. We must appreciate knowledge for the power it gives us. Power not only to have our own opinions, but also to enact change. The ability to make a difference is the mark of a liberal education, the mark of becoming fully human. Aristotle argued that education is not only a means, but an end. By continuing a lifelong ambition to learn with a critical mind, challenge our assumptions, and make a difference, we become better individuals as well as responsible citizens of this planet. This is the broader understanding of liberal education. Everyone in a liberal college or university, or within any educational system in a country founded on freedom of speech and thought, should have the right to the expression of their own opinions. Like Alice, we must continue to ask questions. We must be masters of our language, our education, and our lives. Like Juniata's adage of think, evolve, act, we must reflect on the information we receive, manage it in such a way that we are open to the adaptation of our ideas, and then use our knowledge to benefit our lives and our world. This is not only our right as scholars, it is our responsibility as citizens.
John Damon.
John Damon. Good evening. I would like to ask each of you to think of an issue that's important to you. This issue can be anything you are passionate about, whether it be gun control, which is absolutely necessary, capital punishment, which should be banned, the war in Iraq, which never should have happened, school prayer, which should be forbidden, abortion, which should be every woman's right, or gay marriage, which I see as permissible. Now, imagine me as your teacher, you as my students. If you agree with my liberal stance, then you are correct. But if you disagree, then you are wrong without question. Conservative viewpoints seem to have no place in this classroom. For the conservatives here tonight, how do you feel? Most likely, you're feeling angry, frustrated, and invisible. For the liberals in attendance, how do you feel that I fully agree with you? You may feel comforted that I agree, but should you? After all, I am failing to challenge your beliefs. The issue here tonight is whether a liberal education should mean liberal politics. Even though I am a registered Democrat, I believe that a liberal arts education should not mean liberal politics. Let me tell you why. In the past, medieval times, the concept of a liberal arts education was used to create an engaged community. In the present, however, we are notably less engaged, seeing politics as a spectator sport, not as a process that demands active participation. One solution to create more engaged citizens is a liberal arts education, as it was intended. By challenging our beliefs, a true liberal arts education has the power to awaken our minds and can empower us to make a difference. Somewhere throughout the course of history, the ideas of a liberal education and liberal politics became intertwined. I can't tell you when these two concepts became entangled, but I can tell you that originally, a liberal arts education was not meant to advance any political ideology, but to cultivate an engaged community of liberal minds. According to historians Tierney and Painter, the liberal arts can be traced to medieval times. Even though only 3 professions existed at the time, law, theology, and medicine, a student was required to study the 7 liberal arts, which focused on the languages, sciences, and arts. All liberal arts classes were mandatory for all students, whatever their major, in order to develop communication, thinking, and leadership skills. Not unlike our experience here at Juniata College. Now, I will admit that times change, and we certainly have a lot more to choose from than a career in law, theology, and medicine. Another change is that citizens are notably less engaged from politics and world events. Why are we less engaged today than in the past? Some blame the education system. In their book, Teaching College Freshmen, authors Erickson and Stromer are today finding a different breed of college student, one who seeks wealth instead of intellectual improvement or making a difference. A college student who is less engaged and more difficult to reach. Many college professors are doing little to help the situation. These authors also find that many college professors today are responding to the less engaged students by lowering their standards. In the book, Sense and Nonsense, Harry Ray observes that professors are pressured by the laws of the market to make their courses more attractive to students. Instead of offering an opportunity to reflect upon the forces that brought about this social reality, universities are increasingly accommodating to it. If these researchers are correct, what can we do to advance from a culture of disengagement today to a culture of engagement in the future? As members of the Juniata community, we hold a part of that solution. That solution is a liberal arts education. The Association of American Colleges and Universities acknowledges that students who practice a liberal arts education are empowered to put their knowledge to use. However, a liberal arts education will not be effective if it offers only one side of the story. In order to develop a strong argument, we need to reflect upon both a liberal and conservative stances on an issue. Socrates once said that the unexamined life is not worth living. If we learn only one side of the story during our education, how can we possibly say that our lives have been examined? We need to be exposed to numerous viewpoints in order to develop our own convictions and beliefs. Dr. Robert Harris, a former professor of English at USC, believes that we can examine our lives through a liberal arts education. If we expose ourselves to a variety of ideas and viewpoints, Dr. Harris is convinced that we will develop our own opinions based not upon any authorities, but upon our own evaluation of argument and evidence. In his eyes, a liberal arts education will provide us with a skill far more important than job training. It will teach us how to live. St. Thomas Aquinas once said, "Beware the man of only one book." While many here today may hold the belief that the liberal path is the best path toward a better state, nation, and world, offering only a liberally slanted education is not the best path toward cultivating more engaged minds. In closing, I ask this favor of the educators of today and the future. Do not hand us one lens with which we are to perceive the world around us. Rather, develop in us the tools to create our own firm, yet flexible lens. A lens that will allow us to stand up for what we believe in, yet be open and adaptable to the opinions of others. By having our own beliefs challenged, we as individuals may not only learn something new, but we may also discover who we really are. For ultimately, a world filled with a greater number of intellectually mature and engaged people is the best pathway toward a better state, nation, and world.
Aaron Bainey.
Aaron Bainey. Imagine hearing the following statement. Juniata College is a small conservative arts college located in central Pennsylvania. What would a conservative arts college look like? What would we study? How would it differ from a liberal arts education? The term liberal is often taken for granted when it is used to describe an institute of higher education, but the importance of it must not be marginalized. We are here tonight because in some way we have bought into the idea of a liberal arts education. Whether we are in the midst of obtaining our degree or are in some way affiliated with this institution, our connection to Juniata establishes our connection to being educated liberally. This thought is quite possibly uncomfortable for some of you, as it once was for me. However, if we reclaim the true meaning behind the concept of liberal, believe in opening our minds to work towards a better understanding of ourselves and each other, and are willing to be courageous enough to question that which is safe, we realize our college cannot be anything but liberal. Therefore, to be the true liberal arts college that we should be, every aspect of education at Juniata must reflect true liberal thinking, including our approach to politics. I came to Juniata, like so many others, from a tiny town named Spring Mount in central Pennsylvania, having attended a small high school. My parents told me after their orientation at Juniata that the campus seemed very liberal. In my naive mind, this was almost certainly something to be feared, but I decided that liberals couldn't change my mind, and I would surely emerge from the liberal politics in which Juniata was apparently immersed with my most cherished beliefs intact. And then I arrived. I listened, I learned, I was challenged by great professors. I got involved in some conversations about topics which I couldn't have imagined in my wildest dreams, but which forced me to step outside of my comfort zone and face the uncertainty and fear of reconsidering my original viewpoints. And I began to think and question, and I am slowly becoming liberal in a sense that has everything yet nothing to do with my political affiliations. While some may think that in order to be liberal, a person must support the Democratic Party, the true meaning of liberalism that should be embraced by every institute of higher education has nothing to do with favoring Democrats or Republicans. The philosopher Morris Cohen once said, "Liberalism is too often misconceived as a new set of dogmas taught by a newer and better set of priests called liberals. Liberalism is an attitude rather than a set of dogmas, an attitude that insists upon questioning all plausible propositions, seeking not to reject them, but to find out what evidence there is to support them." When a liberal arts education is defined in this manner, I would argue that one of its main purposes is to provide the opportunity and the atmosphere for people to develop a liberal attitude that is independent of political viewpoints. As scholars, we must be willing to investigate all possibilities, even those that challenge our most cherished beliefs. Before I arrived at Juniata, I thought that by turning a deaf ear to what I perceived to be a liberal argument, I could protect myself from a way of thinking that I perceived to be wrong. In reality, by closing my mind, I kept myself from learning what was right. When I say right, I'm not referring to right-wing or left-wing politics, but rather the rightness that can be achieved when two individuals from different political parties or different life ideologies come together, discuss an issue, and leave with a better understanding of one another and ourselves. We then open ourselves up to the wonderful possibility of working together to discover our commonalities, rather than focusing on our differences. This is not an easy task. A true liberal attitude requires that we remain open when hearing an opinion that differs from everything we have been exposed to thus far, including many different political ideologies. For me, it is so difficult to question everything I have always considered to be correct politically, and I sometimes fail. But I am at a liberal arts college today because I want to learn about different ideas and challenge traditional concepts liberally. By doing this, I can sort out what I believe and have the courage to defend my answers
with as much passion yet open-mindedness as I have seen some of my peers and professors display. A. Bartlett Giamatti, a former president of Yale University, once said that a liberal education is at the heart of a civil society, and at the heart of a liberal education is the act of teaching. Every class and every professor has the opportunity to present new ideas and challenging concepts to students. Some professors steer clear of stating their personal beliefs, so students have a clear mind with which to decide for themselves, while others cannot help but display their true opinion through their words and deeds. One of the most vivid memories from my freshman year was a comment made by a professor after I disagreed with his opinion and voiced my support for one woman's argument in the latest article that our class was reading. While I cannot recall his exact words, he essentially nullified my opinion and expressed disbelief that I fell for the author's argument. I was indignant. How dare he criticize my viewpoint? Today I ask you, how dare he not challenge my opinion? While every individual's opinion should be valued and respected, one of the most challenging aspects of being liberal is having the courage to question. What good can occur if we are always told that we are right? How do we benefit if we are never made aware that our viewpoint may not be the correct one, and that many more exist and deserve to be considered? Now I realize that this professor inspired me to question my beliefs further, which gave me more confidence to express my opinion, so that next time I could better explain my viewpoint. I have great respect for this professor now, and for all those who consistently challenge me to become more liberally minded. And I'm thankful that I am, because now I realize that the politics of this campus are not as important as thoroughly investigating every topic with an open mind. If blind adherence to political affiliations takes the place of liberal thinking, then we have lost the true meaning behind a liberal arts college. As members of the Juniata community, we must continue to question the problems that plague our world today and not succumb to the fear of questioning. The questioning process must continue beyond the 4 short years that we spend at Juniata, because there is a world full of ideas waiting for us. Perhaps my parents were right when they tried to warn me that Juniata seemed very liberal. For I firmly believe that if we reclaim the true meaning behind the concept of liberal, believe in opening our minds to work towards a better understanding of ourselves and each other, and are willing to be courageous enough to question that which is safe, then we can all embrace true liberalism, not as a new set of dogmas, but as an attitude for life.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Most of us have put our hands over our hearts and done the same thing hundreds of times before. But what if I chose to exercise my freedom of speech, or rather, silence, and turn my back to the flag as everyone else recited the pledge? That is exactly what Manhattanville College senior Tony Smith did 1 year ago. According to countless news reports, including CNN, the basketball player turned her back to the flag during the national anthem instead of saluting it during last year's season. She is quoted in New York Times as saying, "There are a lot of inequities in this country, and these are issues that needed to be acknowledged. The rich are getting richer, and the poor are getting poorer, and our priorities are elsewhere," meaning the war in Iraq. That to me sounds like a very liberal thing to do, protesting the war, exercising your freedom of speech, turning your back on our country's flag. But I wonder, where did she learn her liberal politics? I'll bet that no one at her school educated her to protest in the way that she did. I argue that, sure, a liberal education could mean liberal politics, but it doesn't have to. Our education is a result of our own choices. Literally, it is what we make of it. We learn so much information, but according to a Carnegie Mellon study, only retain about 11% of everything we are taught. That's right, I said only 11% of everything we're taught. Just because a student is taught by a liberal professor does not mean that student will adopt liberal views. It is up to each one of us to listen with an open mind, evaluate what is said, and form our own opinions. Our education, liberal or not, comes from so many sources other than schools. These sources have changed throughout the years, yet all remain significant. For our grandparents' generation, school was not the primary educator. For our parents' generation, important social movements were influential. And for our generation, the media had become the privileged educator. I remember doing a report on my grandparents and realizing just how much their generation had lived through. My grandparents were lucky. They were able to finish high school. 50% of the generation never had a chance, according to Kuntz's, the way we never were. Many children during the 40s instead found themselves working alongside their mothers to keep the economy and their families alive during the war while the men were fighting. So where did their education and beliefs come from? Not high school, not college. They didn't have to go to school to learn their political views. They learned from their parents and from their own lives. My grandfather grew up watching his father go to work and helping his mother raise his 8 brothers and sisters. I know that after watching his family struggle as a child, my grandfather wanted better for his children, so learning a trade became a priority to him. No one in a classroom had to teach him that was important. He made that decision for himself. Anne Frank once said, "Parents can only give good advice or put them on the right path, but the final forming of a person's character lies in their own hands." Our grandparents' generation is living proof that even in times of great despair and misery, we are always capable of making our own choices in life. A generation later, our parents were living through the tumultuous times of the anti-war, civil rights, and women's movements, resulting in a generation gap. They learned a great deal from the events of their time, such as the Vietnam War, Kent State, and Watergate. While their parents were stressing good manners, the president was being accused of conspiracy. At a time when schools pushed standardization and a controlled environment, students were dealing with the civil rights movement and being drafted for the war. School was the last thing on their minds. Our parents didn't need someone in a classroom teaching them liberal or conservative politics. They wanted change. All they had to do was to look around them and make their own decision. Their entire generation was completely disenchanted with government due to the events of the time. Their president is to date the only president ever to resign from office. On May 4th, 1970, 4 students were shot and killed during a peaceful protest at Kent State. And every day, young Americans were being killed in Vietnam. Our parents lived during a time of sit-ins, scandals, and, according to Time Life magazine, the establishment of streaking. Martin Luther King wrote in a letter from jail, "The question is not whether we will be extremists, but what kind of extremists we will be." The only fault of that generation was that they cared too much. They believed in the potential of the world at that time only to become cynical because of the outcome. But still, they used that cynicism, not a liberal classroom, to make a choice and to create a voice for themselves and their beliefs. Education has changed drastically from when our parents and grandparents were in school. Rarely do children have a parent home with them during the day to read to them or even to teach them their colors. Television has not only become a babysitter and a best friend to children, it has also become their educator. When Christmas time came around this year, I saw a trend in educational toys for children. These aren't the smart toys I had when I was younger. The toys are so smart now that the child doesn't even need anyone else to read to them. The toy does it for you. The toy acts as the teacher and nurturer for the child instead of the parents or a classroom instructor. My generation is educated by the media more than any other generation. From Barney and Dora the Explorer to anime and Xbox. TV stations decide what we see and how we should see it. Airtime on television and radio is controlled by 6 corporate storytellers. Americans are being fed the viewpoints of just a handful of rich white men, and it is shaping our outlook on the world. For instance, during the Super Bowl this year, CBS refused to air a commercial by MoveOn.org about the children of the world of the future working off Bush's $1 trillion deficit. The network claimed it was too controversial to air. But we all know that if that commercial would have been run, the controversy would still be focused on the halftime show. After one of the Dixie Chicks criticized President Bush, the group CDs were banned from radio stations, but they still played Toby Keith's song, where he sings, "You'll be sorry that you messed with the US of A, 'cause we'll put a boot in your ass, it's the American way." Our politics today are shaped by the media, yet we fail to realize it. But it is our responsibility to question what we see and to make our own decisions. As Tony Smith's example showed us, our education is the direct result of the choices that we make. If the classroom decided our politics, it is due to the indifference of its students. If ever a student claimed that a liberal education meant liberal politics, it is because that student allows it to be that way. We have seen our grandparents and parents' generation face challenges, just as we must face the media challenge of today. To quote Eleanor Roosevelt, "Remember always that you not only have the right to be an individual, you have an obligation to be one."
human. I am a woman. I am a daughter. I am a friend, a sister, an athlete, an artist, an optimist, and a student. I'm all of these roles, but I am not a woman who conforms to society's standards. I am not a friend that betrays the bonds of trust. I am not an artist that creates what others want to see. I am not a pawn. My responsibilities as a student attending a liberal arts college is inherent in the definition of a liberal arts education. It does not necessarily mean accepting liberal view on every topic, or believing that my professors preach liberal politics. My choice to attend Juniata College eliminates my ability to claim that I am merely a playing piece on a professor's chessboard. To that end, let us examine the definition of a liberal education, if and how liberal politics fits, and the responsibilities that liberal arts students must accept given our education. A liberal arts education can be defined as the arena that provides the groundwork for an independently minded human being. Marshall Gregory, a professor of English and liberal education at Butler University, argues, a liberal arts education is the pursuit of human excellence. It focuses on the development of individuals as moral agents, and it teaches students how to reflect both analytically and evaluatively on the fact that the choices we make turn us into the persons we become. We as Juniata College students are offered a unique opportunity because we learn more than reading, writing, and arithmetic. We learn more than job skills. At the culmination of our 4 years, we have learned a way of life. A closer examination of Gregory's references to moral agency and critical thinking captures the life-altering experiences of students like myself have encountered at Juniata. A liberal arts education implies the liberation of the mind. It is through this liberation that students develop into moral agents, aware of a variety of perspectives, critical thinking skills, and the ability to choose one's own path. I came into college overwhelmed by the choices that were presented to me, what courses to take, and how to make friends, what clubs to join, and perhaps most importantly, what was edible in Baker. Academics and athletics were an important part of my education, but turned out to be only a small portion of my experience at Juniata. I've had 2 marketing internships where academic ideas become professional realities. I've dined on delicious conversations and exotic foods at international events. And I've helped with Special Olympics, saw true sportsmanship, and was inspired by many theater productions and artist series events. Given these various learning experiences, final decisions about issues raised in the classroom are not made for me. Rather, I become the hand that moves the pawn, and I control the direction of my game or point of view. I become a moral agent. With the tools of analytical thinking, we become centered in a larger world. We question, challenge, and request explanations. Regardless of our liberal centrist or conservative ideologies, we should evaluate events such as President Bush's recent State of the Union address and question if we want our president to speak out against homosexual marriage because of his religious convictions, just as we should question scientific discoveries such as stem cell research and the development of clones. We learn that what happens outside our state and our nation matters. Our minds broaden so that in our definition of important issues, there exists room for the AIDS epidemic, which has claimed 17 million lives in Africa. That 3/4 of landmine victims in developing countries are civilians. Or the Spirit and Opportunity landings on Mars. And the 2003 Nobel Peace Prize winner Shirin Ebadi for her efforts in democracy and human rights. Alan Greenspan argues that liberal education encourages the appreciation of life experiences that reach beyond material well-being. But if we become independently minded human beings that are both critical and appreciative of our planet, then how can we limit the potential of a liberal arts education to an epithet of liberal politics? How do the differences between liberals and conservatives affect the perception of our liberal arts education? Traditionally, the distinction between liberals and conservatives is that the latter maintain and cherish the status quo, while the former encourage change within it. The open-minded questioning inherent in a liberal arts education lends itself to the basic definition of liberalism. Professors engage the class through discussion and encourage expansive thinking. Therefore, ideas presented to students in class might seem liberal if students expect the status quo to remain unchallenged. However, a liberal arts education is not grounded in liberal politics. It simply shares the basic meaning of the word liberal, to question freely. We become chess players through our liberal arts education, where we have access to a myriad of views on topics. All the pieces or views are needed for us to consider each experience, to choose, and ultimately to move. Given our ability to choose our point of view, what are our responsibilities? A liberal arts education requires that we acknowledge the responsibility to listen, process, question, and challenge ideas. It promotes an open mind and the ability to choose wisely. In this framework, arguments presented to students can no longer be merely accepted. The chess pieces of information given in class are a mixture of opinion and fact, which is open for discussion. We as students are responsibility to listen to that information, formulate the questions, and challenge the issues, such as, does 2 + 2 really equal 4? Should evolution be taught in schools? And is democracy the best form of government? Because of our small class sizes, professors are more like class members, taking an interactive role and contributing to discussions. Therefore, professors' comments supply the guidelines that direct and invite class dialogue, nothing more. As moral agents and critical thinkers with the ability to choose, it is our responsibility to develop our own points of view, based on our convictions and comments from professors and classmates. As John Henry Newman states, a truly great intellect is one which takes a connected view of old and new, past and present, in which has insight into the influence of all these, one on another. Ultimately, we choose what college we attend. And our choice to attend a liberal arts college represents not only our desire for knowledge, but also the desire to build the strength of our character. By being active participants in our education, we become moral agents, critically evaluating our world, but also appreciating its unique qualities. Our education does not rest on a political debate between liberal and conservative ideologies, but when political ideas are presented, we have the ability to choose. We recognize that a political mindset is a mode of thinking, not the undercurrent of our education. Robert Frost acknowledged the true nature of education when he said, "Education is the ability to listen to almost anything without losing your temper." We are the players in our chess game, possessing the pieces of knowledge and how to move them. After all, we are humans. We are students. We are not pawns.
You're either with us or you're against us. President George W. Bush said this at an anti-terrorism summit on November 6, 2001, in regards to the then impending war on terrorism. However, this statement can also be applied to a struggle gripping many colleges. I'm not speaking directly about the battle between ideologies that are left and right politically, but rather a struggle of words and thoughts across college campuses nationwide, even right here at Juniata, where certain students feel voiceless. This tension, created by having to choose whether you're with or against, invokes feelings of anger, loneliness, fear, and perhaps at times even hate by the students whose opinions are all too often viewed as wrong. In The Idea of a University, John Henry Newman wrote, "The purpose of a liberal arts education is to open the mind, to correct it, to refine it, to enable it to know, and to digest, master, rule, and use its knowledge to give it power over its own faculties, application, flexibility, method, critical exactness, sagacity, resource address, and eloquent expression." Juniata's mission statement says that Juniata is dedicated to providing the highest quality liberal education. Where did the arts go? Perhaps we've all forgotten what a liberal arts education truly means, which would explain why our institution has morphed into a place that fosters the art of educating liberals, leaving conservatives feeling as though we have no voice. Tonight's question, does a liberal arts education mean liberal politics, seems to challenge my personal experience and the literal expression of our mission statement. Does this mean our mission statement is flawed? Has Juniata's liberal education truly come to mean liberal politics? For the next few minutes, let us consider how our liberal education has come to mean liberal politics, examine why a liberal arts education should not have to mean liberal politics, and explore what responsibilities students and their professors should take on to maintain the spirit and authenticity of a liberal arts education. I first want to begin with an experience where my liberal education brought me to grips firsthand with liberal politics. At this year's opening convocation, I was invited to lead the Juniata community in singing the alma mater. I got to process in with a longtime friend and roommate who gave a wonderful speech. And beforehand, I was able to spend some time sharing stories with professors as well as President Keppel and Provost Laxo. However, instead of welcoming and encouraging the community, the professor took the opportunity to express his own political views with very little regard or regret for the feelings or differing opinions of others in the room. Amidst all this pomp and circumstance, I was left feeling othered, different, alone. My face started getting red. A current of fear began to flow through my veins, and I felt helpless. While I respected the professor's right to speak his mind, in the moment, I didn't feel like there was room for my voice to be heard at all. You're either with us or you're against us. What could I have done? What should I have done? What I could have done was sit there and listen to the professor's speech and try and understand his point of view. What I should have done was invite the professor to discuss his views and in turn discuss mine, not to figure out who is right or who is wrong, but to get a better understanding of one another. By inviting this type of dialogue, we, all of us, can take an active role in shaping our own education while simultaneously building a better liberal arts community, an uncommon community, if you will. This type of community speaks to the spirit of a liberal arts education. It does not demand that everyone must hate President Bush, that all conservatives are evil, and that they must be eventually turn from the dark side. In my experience at Juniata, the concert choir has embodied the very heart and soul of what a liberal arts education can mean. The concert choir isn't so much a class as it is an experience. Like many other art forms, music allows students to eloquently express feelings, apply their own personal experiences, and address their own values and beliefs. Through this medium, students can vividly paint a picture for each audience member to experience on their own terms. This is what a liberal education can mean when art has influenced it. Beauty, peace, and love are produced when diverse individuals come together to share with one another and live through one another, regardless of political ideologies. Certainly, a liberal education can give you the basic intellectual skills, the ability to read with insight, to use language clearly and effectively, and to think analytically. But a liberal arts education can give you that, and so much more. With the word liberal meaning open or free to change, a liberal education certainly does not mean indoctrination. Unfortunately, when the arts are left out of Newman's definition, the focus shifts towards correcting the mind, obscuring the opportunity for eloquent expression, which is exactly what art fosters. Keeping this opportunity alive is a responsibility of students and professors alike. As liberal arts students, it is time we hold ourselves accountable for the education that we receive. If you feel your voice has been silenced, speak. Engage the perspective with which you disagree in the interest of shedding light upon your own. By doing so, you will be able to then articulate your view in a skillful way. To the professors, I implore you to open up this dialogue for discussion in the classroom where everyone's voice can be appropriately heard without fear of penalty. Invite students to understand your views and beliefs, but encourage them to disagree as well. The more students are able to engage with disparate ideologies, the better they will be able to critique and master their own. Ladies and gentlemen, don't let a flawed question force you to decide whether you're with or against anyone. A true liberal arts community invites critical discussion, embraces disagreement, and demands that all voices be heard. When we break down the barriers of power and fear that divide and hold voices in silence, we will develop an environment committed to the liberation of eloquent expression. Put the arts back in education. Take seriously our responsibilities, and together we will achieve uncommon results.
Gretchen Stahl.
Gretchen Stahl. Are you a liberal? I bet you immediately began thinking of politics. When asked a question like this, are you a liberal? Many of us immediately began to think in terms of political affiliation. And why shouldn't we? The term liberal, by itself,
conveys a strong degree of political connotation. But should it? In a society increasingly preoccupied with political images and illusions, are we confusing the meanings of words to imply political significance where there isn't any? Liberal arts education is a topic close to the hearts and minds of every person in this room, whether you're a current student, professor, alumni, friends, or family. But at what point does the liberal in liberal arts adopt the politically charged meaning of liberal politics? The debate wages back and forth over whether or not liberal arts education places too much emphasis on liberal politics. In Front Page Magazine, December 2003, Colorado Senator John Andrews states, "To say college campuses are liberal is like saying water is wet." The senator's fear is that so-called liberal professors discriminate against students who hold more conservative political values. To combat this problem, Andrews hopes to establish regulative legislation that will make necessary a quota system, forcing colleges to hire an equal number of liberal and conservative professors. The primary problem here is not the phantom professor who discriminates against certain students based on political values. The problem is that we let ourselves get so wrapped up in all the controversies surrounding alleged collegiate political affiliation that we ignore the issues at the heart of the matter. A school's primary function is to educate students, to challenge students, and to expand their views. It seems that one of the strongest connections then between these two different social institutions, liberal arts education and liberal politics, is a misunderstanding of the definition the two concepts have in common: liberal. Somewhere in all of the politically charged rhetoric thrown around each day by newscasters, bureaucrats, analysts, and politicians, the simple word liberal came to have a very complex meaning. So this evening, I advocate a redefinition of terms. Let us examine what a liberal arts education is, address the misinterpretation of the phrase liberal politics, and then disengage these two concepts. So what is a liberal arts education? In reviewing many liberal art college websites, I found a variety of answers to this question. Christendom College in Front Royal, Virginia, describes a liberal arts education as the process by which intellect, instead of being formed or sacrificed to some particular purpose, is disciplined for its own sake. More direct is the University of South Dakota, which states liberal arts education, or liberal learning, has nothing to do with liberal or conservative politics. Rather, the phrase suggests the liberation of the individual through education from ignorance or superstition. Even here, Juniata's mission statement defines the aim of a liberal education is to awaken students to the empowering richness of the mind and to enable them to lead fulfilling and useful lives. All three celebrate the liberation in education. Yet Senator John Andrews wants to ensure academic freedom through regulative legislation. Ensure academic freedom. An interesting choice of words, considering the actual meaning of the word liberal is freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of thought, and in the case of a liberal arts education, the freedom to explore a vast spectrum of ideas. Liberal means freedom. At least it did, and still does as far as dictionary definitions and idealists go. But it's come to have a far different meaning in contemporary American society. In the Naples Daily News, Ann McFeather's February 6th column was entitled "White House Watch, Liberal versus Conservative, Whatever That Means." She asks for a definition of the word liberal. Does liberal now mean less free trade and more restrictive action to keep companies at home? Does it mean spending significant amounts of taxpayer dollars on job training programs? Does liberal mean letting in more and more immigrants? While she does not offer answers to these questions, from the questions alone, it seems obvious that she has a stereotypic understanding of the word liberal. McFetters is not alone in her misperception. She defines liberal as it is commonly used, interchangeable with the word Democrat. Knowing this, the debate about liberal education and liberal politics begins to make a bit more sense. It is another part of the political battle that has waged war in this country from the days when the two major political parties were not the Democrats and the Republicans, but the Republicans and the Whigs, a time when, ironically enough, The Republican Party was seen as liberal and democratic when faced with the alternative. So let's do a word substitution. If liberal means Democrat, which many people seem to think it does, then the actual question should be this: does a liberal arts education equal democratic political affiliation? This question is much easier to answer. No, it does not. Liberal arts colleges are attended by members of all political parties. Liberal arts colleges do not discriminate or vary admittance because of political affiliation, nor should they. Liberal arts colleges encourage a free exchange of ideas among students and faculty to broaden understanding. Having defined liberal and explained the purpose of a liberal arts education, let us look more closely at how we define politics. The Civic Practices Network, a nonpartisan organization that promotes public problem solving, defines the general concept of politics as the partisan activities of elected officials, or as the shady deal-making that takes place in offices of all kinds. This definition is far removed from the original intention of the word. Politics, derived from the Greek word polis, means of the citizen, or citizenship. The phrase liberal politics, then, in its true form, means freedom of citizenship. How important is freedom of citizenship to us? So important that our founders created a constitution that we still follow today. So important that we've since added 27 amendments to that constitution to ensure that no citizen will be deprived of his or her rights. Freedom of citizenship is one of the values upon which this country was established, and one of the values which all people in politics, regardless of political party, uphold. Does a liberal arts education equal liberal political affiliation? The answer depends upon who you're asking and how that person defines the word liberal. But as we have come to see, liberal does not mean Democrat. It means freedom. And freedom isn't just membership in a certain political party. It is a right granted to every American citizen by the Constitution of the United States. Liberal arts education is in place to free the minds of the students who take part in it, to create critical thinkers and citizens of the world. How do we do that? By teaching students more than just one set of political values. The purpose of a liberal arts education is to open your mind, not just to a certain political party's newest election platform, but to an entire world of knowledge and possibility. Taken in this sense, liberal arts education has everything to do with liberal politics, as long as liberal politics is defined as freedom of citizenship. As philosopher Brand Blanchard said, to educate the human mind is not merely to add something to it. It is to transform it at a vital point, the point where its secret ends reside. Education and freedom are two concepts that go hand in hand. Education and politics are not.
Well, we've heard from all of our 7 finalists. Let's give them a big hand. I'm going to whisk the judges away for a little while. So that, have some coffee or tea. There should be some donuts back there. And we'll be back with you in a few moments.
Well, we have a winner, actually 3 winners. Actually, we have 7 winners. This was terrific. This is the 6th time I've had the pleasure of being here, and I can tell you this is the best of 6. So I was quite impressed. So I'd like to announce the winners from 3rd to 1st. And the 3rd place winner is Aaron Bainey. The 2nd place winner is Aaron Bruner. And now the final winner, Gretchen Stahl.